Perfect. Thank you everyone for joining this session. And of course, also this great event. I really, really love this event because it's free, it's on a Saturday, so that's perfect. And I'm really happy that I can tell you more about storytelling and Power BI because I think it's really, really important to create reports that connect with different audiences. And the reason why I think that's so important is because I want to prevent what I call dashboard delivery disappointment. It's actually this feeling. You spend hours building an awesome report or dashboard. You cleaned all the data, you modeled it, you did some changes to it, you designed like this awesome report, exactly what you think the user wanted, and then no one uses it. And it's a horrible feeling. And I think every one of us that's building reports or dashboards with Power BI or any other tool, at a certain point in your career, you will experience it. Even if you do a lot of storytelling and other stuff, there's this point where you just create something and no one uses it. And every time that happens to me, and luckily it's not happening that much anymore, but every time it happened to me, it hurt a little bit. So I want to prevent that, of course, and I want to create something that my audience and the user really uses and that adds value. And before I start about the storytelling, short introduction about myself. I'm Valerie Junk. Really easy to find on social media because there are not a lot of people with that last name. So that's really nice for me. I'm all about data analytics and visualization, data storytelling. So I do a lot with data. I'm also about business intelligence, standardization, and process improvement, and improving processes by using data, of course. I work as an independent consultant. I have my own company, so I can focus on all these topics nowadays. Let's start with the storytelling. Short introduction about storytelling. What is storytelling? When I started to talk about storytelling about 2 years ago at the company I worked for, everyone was like, storytelling, that's just like something you do. You tell a story to a child, or there's a story in a book. What has it to do with data? And what has it to do with Power BI? The thing about storytelling is a story often, or mostly, has a narrative. There's like this begin, there's a middle part, there's something happening, an action, and there's an end. Most of the times you have this structure, a clear structure, you know what to expect. And it's also engaging. If it's a good story, you know what happened afterwards, and you can tell it yourself because it was engaging, it triggered something that makes you remember it. But with storytelling, it's also important that not every story is told the same way to the same audience. Because think about it, a story you would tell to a child, you would tell it in a really different way than to your friends, to your co-workers, anyone else. Why? Because they're different audience. They need different information, but they also consume information in a different way, and you need to take that into account. So storytelling can be really, really helpful if you do it in a way that fits your audience. And if we're looking at the benefits for reports and Power BI, the main benefit is if you use storytelling techniques while creating a report or dashboard, it will help you to create something that's easy to follow and understand. Just like a story in a book or a story you would tell to someone, there's this clear start, everyone knows what it's about, there are some actions to take, and you know what you can do with the information shown to you. And that also makes it engaging. And engaging not only because you have this story, but also because what happens now at the moment in a lot of reports is that people are spending time, they open a report and then they are searching for information. So the engaging part the moment often is, where's my filter? Do I actually have a filter? Do I have drill through? I think I remember something about the drill through, but I don't know for sure. I know the information is somewhere on these 20 pages, but where? That's also engaging because you're on this treasure hunt for information. But that's of course not how you want to engage your user. You want them to open your report and think, okay, this is important information for me and I know what I can do with it. There's also information that helps me to take actions and actually work with the data and take this next step. So you shift the focus from opening a report to actually search for information to opening a report and actually seeing the information the user needs and being able to take actions. And it's also, in the end, time saving. And I say in the end because at the beginning, it will actually cost you some time. Because to be able to use storytelling techniques, you really need to know how storytelling works, but you also need to know your audience. You need to take some extra steps before you create a report. And that takes some time. But in the end, this will actually, again, save you some time, because if you're creating something that's really targeting the audience, then the chance is that the moment you deliver it, maybe there are still some fixes and they want some adjustments and modifications, but some small modifications. What happens a lot if you're not using storytelling and just giving the user all the data is that you need to create something different, or they're not using the report and you need to start over again. And that's really, really time consuming. So you spend a little bit more time at the beginning of the process. So you get to know your audience and actually design for it, but you will save time in the end. So these are three main benefits. There are more benefits, but these are really the three main benefits that also can help you to actually discuss this with the business and with your co-workers. And these storytelling techniques, I always use 3 steps when I'm using storytelling and while I'm building reports. And these 3 main steps are research, just with a normal book that you would write or a normal story you would tell. You do some research about what you want to tell, but you also do some research about the audience, your user, and what they want to see. Then, of course, the creation, which is actually the building, working in Power BI and creating the narrative, but also creating the story you want to tell. And of course, there's the last step, which is delivery. This step is often forgotten. Just like the first step, the research, often we only focus on the create. Someone asks you to build a report, and then you just build the report. You create something, drag and drop, get the data in. There you have your report. But delivery, of course, is also really important because you can have the greatest story, you can have the greatest dashboard report with a really good storyline, and it's exactly what the customer needs. But if they don't know where to find it or how to use it, then they are actually also not going to use it. So these are 3 steps, and I will focus in the presentation on these 3 steps, and I will give you some tips and tricks how you can approach these steps. So the first step is the research. And 3 main things I'm focusing on is the audience, the content, so what they want to see, and the key message of the Power BI report. The audience. You don't want your audience to look like this at your report, like in this comic. Like they open the report and they're like, I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know where to find stuff. I need to answer some questions from the business, but I don't know how to do it looking at this. So to get to know your audience, the first question is, of course, who is the audience? Who are the people that are looking at your report? Are you creating something for one person, for yourself or for someone in your team? Or are you creating something for a team? Are you creating something for the whole company? There are different sizes of audiences. And you need to know this audience, because the bigger the audience, the harder it gets to fulfill the needs of everyone. But you need to know for who you are creating something. For example, a big audience, chances are really, really high that many people have no experience with data. They have no experience with Power BI. Maybe there are people that are not able to interpret visuals. We often forget that. People that work with data a lot, they think it's really normal to understand a visual or a table. But people that are not working with data can have really trouble to understand that kind of things. But if you know that, if you know you're creating a report for a lot of people, and like 99% of these people have never seen a dashboard before, or a report, or any visual, they only know Excel and tables, then you can target them, because you know that if you give these people like a visual with a lot of colors and possibilities and filters and drill-throughs and these kind of things, and they have zero experience, they probably will get lost. So then you know maybe some steps in between. But you need to know this audience. So, and it's not only knowing their experience level, but also what they're actually looking for, what motivates them. And I wrote down, or scares them, which sounds a little funny, but often reports are just like big data graveyards. Like we get all the data from our source, and then we put it in Power BI, and then just drag, drop, and then a new page, and drag more and more and more. And then you have, at a certain moment of time, you have a lot of information, a lot of data in it. And it's just general information. But the real question is, why does your audience actually see the data? What are they going to do with it? Which actions are they going to take? And for example, I get asked a lot, I work a lot with financials, for sales reports. So a company approaches me and they're saying, we want a sales report. Okay. And then I ask them, okay, who's the audience? What are you going to do with the data? And I often, and this is not a joke, but I often get the response, yeah, but you have to build a report. I mean, you have done sales reports before, don't you? Just give us like one of these sales reports. Okay, but what are you going to do with it? They're the same like other companies. And that's, in my experience, just not true. Because even if companies use the same source systems where they get the information from, and they get the information all in the end in Power BI, every company has different targets. They have different definitions of how they're going to use the data, and they have different actions they want to take. And just alone the definitions, they can be so different. Like everyone calculates stuff differently, interprets stuff differently, and you need to know that. So for example, in a sales dashboard, I designed one for the account managers, and they wanted to see the sales information for their accounts, because if they did good in sales, they actually get some additional payment. So if they hit the target, they get some payment. And if they did not hit the target, of course, they did not get the payment. But of course, they also want to take some action. So we're back to the actions. Because if they didn't get the sales they needed, they of course wanted to see, okay, where is it going wrong? Is there some product or account that actually had bigger sales a year before and now the sales dropped? Because then they can take some actions, plan some meetings, go to the account, have a talk to them. You see, they can do stuff. So that motivates them first, because they see, did I hit my target or not? And with the data they're getting to see, they actually can take some actions. But therefore, of course, you need to know the people you are designing it for, because you need to know which actions they want to take, where they focus on, and what motivates them. So that's why this part is really, really important. And I always tell people you really should put some time into finding out these things. Another thing that's important is, of course, how much detail do they need? It's also real experience. If I ask companies, how much detail do you need, like the granularity of the data, they always tell me they need all the data. And if I ask, why do you need actually all the data? Because no one's going to look at all the data. They tell me, because that's what we also have in our source system. But of course, there's a reason why you're not working with your source system and why you want to put Power BI reports on top of it. And that's because it's kind of different. You want to actually do something with the information, you want to visualize it. You don't need all the details. But then, of course, you need to have a talk to the business and to the customer, which details they need to see. And the last one is also really important. How do they access and consume information? This is not a joke. I have customers that actually do physical copies, like print the dashboards I'm creating, and then they take them to their meeting and they make notes on on their copy. And I know there's all these possibilities in Power BI, and I told them like 10 times, but they just really like to have their physical copies of stuff. The thing is, if you know that someone's going to make physical copies of your Power BI report, then you can't work with a lot of filters and drill through and stuff, because of course that's not working anymore when you have a physical copy of it. So if you know that, you can make sure that you provide information in a way that's actually working for someone like that. And there are other possibilities, not just physical copies, but you really need to know how they're going to use it. I also had a customer that told me they will use all the reports for their business on big TV screens in a room. And I asked them, okay, but you really don't need like a smaller version, because these were really, really big dashboards, lots of information on it. And they were like, no, this is fine. And after half a year, I actually had a meeting with the CEO, and he told me, yeah, we really, really love these dashboards and they help us to take so many actions. But have you thought about creating something a little bit more compact? Because I'm opening these reports every morning on my mobile phone, and these reports were not made to open on a mobile phone. There was so much information on it. And it's quite hard to actually read something, and I'm doing really my best, but would it be possible to make something in a mobile view? And if I had known that, and maybe I should have asked in between and not just after half a year, of course, you can design something also in a mobile view, but that's why it's so important to know these things. So it's important to know your audience, ask all these questions. There are really a lot more questions you can ask, but these are, in my experience, the ones that having the most impact and are, in my experience, most important to ask. So when I'm knowing my audience, something else I'm always doing, at least if it's more than one person, is I try to create personas. And personas are actually like these fictional representations of the audience. And I write down all their needs and visions and how they are similar to each other and how they're different. And that's important because if you have a big audience, let's say 100 people that are going to use what you create, these people are going to be different from each other. They have different experience levels, they have different needs, maybe they even want to see different things. And I think personally, it's really nice to just write that down. And you don't need to write a a book about them. Just what I'm doing often is post-its, and then I write down, okay, these are the key users. They're going to need this information. These are users that also look at the report, but just once a month. They have these needs and wishes, and this is their experience level. And I write that all down and then put it on a table in front of me. And of course, you can also do it on your laptop or online, just to see what's the situation. Because these kind of things, while you're creating the report, you will start to forget again. And I always have this information next to me and check while I'm creating reports if I'm still designing for the people that I'm intended to design. And it's really, really important to not make assumptions. And it can be hard to get the right people to talk to you. Every time I'm starting a new project, I have these project kickoffs and I want to talk to some key users. Of course, if you're creating something for 100 people, you can't talk to all of the 100 people. That would be a lot of, that would be really time consuming. But I'm trying to use or trying to talk to some of these people to get an idea. And sometimes companies really don't want to make this time, and they're actually trying to force you to make these assumptions, just create the sales report. But then I still try to get an idea about, I'm just asking, can you tell me something about the team? How are they working? Which tools are they working with? These kind of things, just to get a little bit an idea about their experience level, how used they are to data, how used they are to Power BI. The more assumptions you make, the harder it gets to create something they will actually use or that will actually fit them. Because if you make assumptions about the experience level, it can go really, really wrong. So try to create these personas. Like I said, you can also do it like on sticky notes or on notepad. Just write down a few things about the people in your audience. It can help you really. So you know your audience, you create some personas, and then of course, for a good story, you need to know what's the actual message. What do I want to tell? And something I'm doing, and that's from my personal experience, is I try to answer one key message with one page. And what I'm meaning with that is, for example, in the sales dashboard, I always want to focus on one message or actions to take. And I look at the context, the information, and of course the actions to take. And I will go on in the next slide about it, which I just saw I made a typo. Of course, it's just not a key message, but another key message is what I often hear is I stay with the sales report. We want a sales report, and the context is all the sales information of all the years, every day, maybe even with a timestamp on it. And we want all the information, and the actions we want to take, we still have to think about it. That's not a key message, because that just means they want you to get all the information and put it in Power BI. This will answer probably a lot of questions, but the user will have to search for it, and it's just not structured. I give you 3 examples of key messages, and they differ in granularity. So the first one would be each year we share information with the whole company what our key sales results are. So the profits, the cost, the margin, and difference last year. So the context is each year. We know this yearly event where we share information with everyone. And the information they want to share is the key sales results. And the action in this example, the action is really like sharing the information. Could be like this yearly meeting where the business shows the rest of the company, like, these are our results and we have 10% more profit and really nice woo-woo. So this doesn't need a lot of, if you would create this in a dashboard or report, this doesn't need a lot of information, because what you see is we just need it for the year and we want to share it with the whole company, which also means really, really big audience, probably, if it's a big company, and not everyone is that experienced with data and data visualization. The second example is, as management team, we evaluate monthly the key sales results, the performance of our account managers, viewers versus target, and the best worst products. So there, the context is management team and a monthly evaluation. So this is for a particular team and which is a particular audience, and it's a monthly report. And the information they want to see is the key sales results, so the KPIs, but they also want to see the performance of the account managers and the performance of the best and worst product. So you see here that it's a little bit more information, but what they also do is they have some additional action, because they want to evaluate. So they will have meetings, they will use this information, they will go to the account managers, the management team, and they will actually talk about what they're seeing. So the level of detail is a little bit deeper. There's more information they will need to actually have these discussions. And then the third example is our data analysts daily dig through all the data to investigate hidden trends and anomalies. So the context is data analysts, they have these daily reports, and they get all the data. I wrote down all the data, but of course the data that's really what they for that topic. And what they're going to do is they're going to have their own investigations, because they want to do some further analysis. They want to have further looks into trends and anomalies. This last group probably also is a group that actually has edit rights in Power BI. They have their own reports, they have their own probably also workspace, and do their own analysis. They're used to working with data with a lot of detail and doing their own thing in it. But you see, these 3 messages and 3 goals actually lead to different needs. And I will show you how this can look in different design. Like the first message we had was the management team that actually did the evaluation. They only, or the company update. So the 2 left examples actually show that these are dashboards I created that look a little bit more like infographics. And you see there's a little bit of text at the top that's actually in written words showing what's going on in the dashboard. You have the KPIs. There are some visuals, but I kept them really, really simple. And the only action these dashboards had was to actually inform the rest of the company. So there are no filters on it, no drill-throughs. Someone could actually make a physical copy of this. And I'm really not promoting making physical copies of stuff, but I know people are doing it and it would actually still work. And the second in the middle, 2 reports, they're actually the reports I was talking about that needed a little bit more detail, because they're used to actually evaluate, get some additional information, having a discussion with someone about the results, targets hit or not hit. And you see there are some visuals, but there's also a little bit of table, still highly visual. And then the last example at the bottom, this is for the people that actually also work with data themselves, because they want to dig to the data, make their own analysis, make their own visuals maybe, and just giving them a starting point to see, okay, something's happening. Can we see a trend or something else that's not yet provided in the other reports? But you see, the different messages also lead to different designs. And these designs are not set in stone. These are just some examples I wanted to share with you. Because what I see a lot is that people think there's this one-size-fits-all approach for dashboards and reports. We just have one report and that works for everyone. But if you look at these examples and these different messages, you see that the same data is visualized differently, because the people that are looking at it and need to work with it and want to take actions with it actually need the information in different ways. And sometimes I get asked, but what if the audience is too different? What actually if we have a customer and they want just one Power BI report, and they want all the information in it? I mean, I can't just not do that, can't I? And through the years, I've learned that I always will have a discussion with the customers if they really just need one report, because I personally don't believe in this one-size-fits-all approach, because people are different and people need different approaches. But what I'm doing, if someone says, we really just want one report and don't make it difficult, we just want everything, is I try, if I know the audience, I try to deliver something like a first page where they have like this overview for the people that are not that tech savvy, that don't work with Power BI normally, that just see this report once in a month or once every 3 months. And then I also create like a different page with more information on it, just because I don't want people to get lost in Power BI. And so I always see like what's possible within the budget, because I think telling this story and having this narrative in your report and answering the key message is just really, really important. And often at the beginning, companies don't see the need for that, also because they don't have experience with it. And I try to educate them about that and show them examples. And that's why I also have a lot of examples that I bring with me to company discussions, just to show them what the influence could be about using a key message or not using a key message. So now I talked a lot about audience, like researching your audience, creating a persona, getting to know them, and getting to know the key message. But now we actually want to create something, I think, because that's at least for me, it's the fun part. And I really love my job, but really working in Power BI and designing something, creating something that's not only has really good quality data, but is also visually appealing and telling a good story, that's where I take most pleasure of. So we want to create something. We want to create the story, the narrative. And I want to talk to you about using a storyboard and templates and which visuals you can use to actually create something that's telling the story. And something I'm doing a lot is I'm using a storyboard. And I told you before about the personas, where I write down on Post-its who my audience is, and I group them a little bit. I do the same with the information I get from the customer. So what I'm doing a lot is I write down everything on sticky notes, like what are the KPIs they want to see, which information do they want to see, what's the message they want to tell, what kind of information do I have. So I go through the data and see what I see in the data and what I can use from the data to actually show the information. And then I all write that down on sticky notes. And I have my audience, the personas next to me, so I check, do I answer all the questions for everyone? And then I just put it in front of me, just like a report in Power BI. So I put the KPIs in front of me and the possible visuals that answer the questions. And the funny thing is, if you have it all in front of you, you can actually check one, if you translated every piece of information to some part of design in your in front of you, but also if it makes sense, if this actually tells the story. So you know the key message and the answers you want to provide, and then you have it in front of you and you can actually check if that works, if it answers the questions. And what happens to me often is that I think, hey, I wrote something down on one of these sticky notes, but I think it's not necessary. So maybe we can replace it. Or I see all the things in front of me and I think, there are different ways how I could visualize this. And then I also write it down. And then I go to the customer again and we have this discussion, like where I actually already propose some visuals we can use to answer things. And what I'm also often doing is, that's the example at the bottom, is I make a mock-up. So first I create my storyboard, put everything in front of me, sorted, and then I make a quick mock-up on my tablet. And if you do this more often, it's really fast. Like by now I do them in like 5 minutes, just to give the customer an idea and also check with them if the story I think this is telling is also the story they see when they're looking at it. And when you wonder, why are you not doing this in Power BI? Because of course I have the data, I could do this in Power BI. My experience is, if I do these mock-ups in Power BI, that people will focus on wrong things, not wrong things, but they will focus on different things than design. In my experience, there were a lot of data definition discussions because I just dragged and dropped some KPIs and I told them we will put the KPIs there. These are your KPIs and they're the beginning of your story. And then instead of saying, okay, these are the KPIs we are looking for, or we need different KPIs, I got this discussion, oh, I thought our sales are different. Why is it calculated this way? And then there's this 2-hour discussion about the definition of sales. So that's why I'm doing that by now with mock-ups and post-its, just to prevent the discussion. And of course, it's really, really important to have a discussion if the definitions are not the same between teams. It's really, really important to have the discussion what's going on, but not in a design workshop. And I just saw a question popping up, like, which tool are you using to make these mock-ups then on your tablet? It's kind of a painting tool. It's a free tool I downloaded somewhere, and I tend to not like to spend too much money for these things, and I just draw stuff. So it's not a specific mock-up tool, and I know there are a lot of tools that you can actually use for these mock-ups. I'm just really old school with some paint version drawing it. So you don't need to spend a lot of money on it. Something else I'm doing next to these mockups that I then, and the storyboards that I discuss with my customers, is for the one customer, I always use the same templates. And why templates? Because they help to be consistent. And with templates, I mean like a color scheme, a way of working. And what do I mean with that? For example, in these 3 dashboards, you see the first one doesn't have any filters, but the second and third, they have filters at the top. So what I'm doing with this customer is I put all the filters for all the reports, dashboards, always at the top. Why? Because then they know that's where they find them. There's no, okay, where are my filters today? Are they on the left? Are they at the top? Are they on the right? Are they in somewhere in Power BI? They know if there's a filter, it will be at the top. The color scheme, it's just for consistency that all their reports look the same, and it's just easier for the eye. And what I'm also doing is I try to use, when I'm using colors, for example, for different groups, I try to use the same colors for all the reports, even if it's a different report. It's just really consistency and helping your user to know what they can expect. If when they know they're opening a report from me, they know, okay, she created it, the filter will be at the top. Everything that's blue or black means this. So they know what they can expect. So this mental load will be lower because they can focus actually on other stuff than searching for filters. Something else I'm also doing is, for example, if I use bookmarks where you can switch stuff, or I use drill through functionality where you do the right click and go to a different page. If I'm using that, I always put some text or sign in the dashboard that shows them that they can do that at somewhere in the dashboard or report. Because they know if I don't see the text or the symbol or something else that we are normally using, it's not there. They don't need to search for it. This gives you some kind of consistency. And like I said, in storytelling, you want to answer a key message and it has the structure, and you don't want to tell a story and then people go on all kind of side quests where they're going to search for filters, drill through, they get lost, and people always underestimate or overestimate the attention span of people. Because I know people, if they go on a drill through and then they see a filter option and then they don't know what they were looking for, they just go on with something else. So I try to make it just consistent, and help them to guide through the report. So what I'm also doing, and that's really important for the storytelling techniques, is to declutter and enrich. Because we talked about your audience and the key message. And when we create visuals, we often forget that you can actually add or remove certain things like data labels, legends, all kinds of stuff. And the options are getting more and more. The thing is, you should always look at the visuals you're using and then check, are they answering the questions we want to answer? In this example, I show you 2 sales visuals, and the left one shows you the sales this year and last year is the gray line that's a little bit with stripes dotted, something like that. And then you see the lowest sales and the highest sales of this year compared to last year. And on the right visual, you see same visual, but there are more data labels. There are actually data labels for all the sales every month. And now there's no good or bad in this, because these 2 visuals that have exactly the same information in them just answer different questions. The first one would answer the question, okay, I need a sales report and I want to see the month of the past year where we had the highest sales and the lowest sales compared to last year. I just want to check that. Could be But people requesting something like that, they only want to see these two numbers. They want to see highest and lowest month compared to last year. The right visual actually would answer a different question, and that would be, what are my sales compared to last year? Are we doing better or worse? So it's not that one of them is wrong, it's just they're both telling something else. And I have another example for you, and that's actually all you're looking at the same information. It's all sales by territory. But it's differently visualized. And now I know people have a lot of discussion about pie charts, and I'm not using pie charts like this too, but I just wanted to add it to show you how information looks in different visuals. And I actually have customers and they use self-service BI. So they're creating their own reports. And I don't know why, but all my customers that are doing that, they're like the hugest fans of pie charts. And I'm seeing these a lot. And now the thing is, of course, I could tell them, no, don't use pie charts, not like that. And you can have a discussion like that. Or, and that's what I'm doing a lot, is I'm showing them all the possibilities. And I'm asking them, okay, we are trying to answer a question. We have a story we want to tell and a storyline in this report. Looking at all the possibilities you have, like this pie chart, a map chart, like these tables. And the one at the bottom right is actually a table with some conditional formatting where you also see a bar chart, so combination. So looking at all the possibilities that you have, do you still think that the pie chart you have chosen is telling the story most efficiently? Most of the time it's not, but it's easier if they see it themselves than when you try to have this discussion without showing them all our possibilities. And also these possibilities that I'm showing you here, for example, the sales by territory map, where you just see the colorings. I showed it to other people and they said, but I don't see the exact numbers there. And what if people don't know where they live? I mean, that's another discussion, but it can be confusing. But sometimes a map like this is enough. For example, if you have this yearly update where you just want to show people, give them some impression, no one will analyze this data, it's just for the presentation. That can be enough because this map is much easier to understand for most people, expect people that don't know where they are on the map, than, for example, a table. So when you're trying to use storytelling techniques, just check your visuals and try to choose the visual that fits best. And it's not always the same visual. It can be really, really different depending on the answers you want to give, depending on what you want to show and what's the goal of the report. Something else I'm doing a lot nowadays is I try to provide a little bit more context to my visuals. So when I started building reports, and it was many, many years ago in Excel, I just always did it like in the left example. I wrote down what you can see. Sales quota per month with target. I mean, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing months, you're seeing sales, and then you see a target line, and there are numbers on top. And I read actually a book about it, and someone suggested, like, if you have the possibility to put the answer in the title, why wouldn't you do it? And that's actually the right example where I wrote down sales target hit 4 times in 2023. And you have this dynamic titles in Power BI, so you can actually create something like that. I say quite easily. If you know how you are going to do it, it's quite easily. what this does is people that are not as good in reading visuals, they can actually read the text and then understand much better what they're looking at. So you're providing a little bit more context. And something else I think is really important is, if possible, simplify. That's something I also had to learn. And it just came to me when I started creating infographics a little bit more, where you just put really little information in it, just key information. But if this visual, the simplified visual, is actually telling the story you want to tell, and the user doesn't need all the information, for example, in this left visual, why not simplify it? If the only question you want to answer is, when did we hit our sales target in this year? Why would you make it complicated? You could also do it like in the right example. Okay, we hit it in May, June, July, and August. So, but therefore it's important to know your audience and know what they're looking for, because then you know, can I simplify it? The thing about simplifying is the bigger the audience is, like I said, the bigger is the chance that there are a lot of people that have difficulty working with data, interpreting visuals. So if you make it really, really simple for them, it's easier to understand and there's less confusion about it. So what I always advise is check your visuals. And I was talking now a lot about what you can do when you're creating a new report or new dashboard, but often you also already have reports or dashboards you're working with, but you see the story is not really like I want it to be, or the visual is not really telling the story. They're just like little tweaks you can do to actually make it easier to understand. So even if you already have a report or a dashboard and you see it's not exactly what I want it to be, just start like with one visual and see how you can change it. So for example, the table, I know a lot of customers want tables. And of course you can have like discussions about yes, no tables, but you also can of course use a table and do some conditional formatting and also build in some bar charts or some icons or something, which make it easier to interpret and also easier to see what's actually going on. So what I'm always doing is check how I can still make changes to it, what's possible. So you don't have to recreate everything, but just start small. And that if you're really, really new to storytelling, and using it with data, it can be really overwhelming. So that's like my advice. If you don't know how to start, just pick like one visual and look at it and try to answer questions like, is this answering the questions for my audience? Who's my audience for this? Which story am I telling with this visual? What questions do I try to answer and how can I improve it? And then you just start really small and then it will grow. So the last part of my presentation, it's almost time I see, is the delivery. And the delivery is actually the moment where you evaluate and test, but I would advise you to not just do the delivery at the end, but also somewhere in between. And what do I mean with that is I always deliver different versions and different stages of my dashboards and reports. So I'm showing them the first version, the second version, the third version. Of course, this takes time also for them because they need to look at it, provide feedback. But I always want to check if we are working on the same thing, if I'm actually creating something they are looking for. So what I'm doing with these in-between evaluations and end evaluations, I'm doing like small test runs. And I don't need to be with the whole team, but with some people from my audience, because I want to check if it makes sense what I'm building, if they understand the data. Often I also ask them, I'm showing them the report, and I ask them, what do you see? Just to let them explain what they see, because then I know how they're interpreting it. I'm not making assumptions for them. I always ask for feedback, and if I delivered something in Power BI, I always come back after a few weeks and we have a call like, are people using it? And what I'm also doing, and what I really would advise, is making use of usage reports if you can, because you can get these reports in Power BI, because people are not always honest to you. And I had teams that were telling me, "Whoa, we love your report and we're using it every day." And perfect. And then I opened the usage report and I saw that they all opened it like first day after demo. And then the only person opening it after that was the intern, which is not bad. Maybe they're all really, really busy and they just don't have the time, and maybe the intern is just the person working with it. I mean, that's perfectly fine. But I want to know if that's the case, or that they all don't know what's going on and the intern is the only person actually getting what's happening in Power BI. So I want to know that and I want to evaluate. Because if the reason is that they don't understand what they can do, then I want to talk to them and fix it and want to present it in a way that they actually know what to do. And the last thing is that the delivery is key. And that's what I also told at the beginning. If you know that your user, your audience, is going to make physical copies of it and give them to other people in meetings, maybe don't use filters and drill throughs. If you know they will send it by mail or make screenshots of it, make sure there are little possibilities how they can change it. Because what's happening if people make screenshots or handouts and they have possibilities to filter, they may filter, make a screenshot, send it to someone else, they open Power BI, but they have different filter options on, their data looks different, and you will have a lot of discussion. So the takeaway is, consider your audience, really think about who are the users, how are they going to use it, what is the key message. Try to use a storyboard and templates, really, and you can start small with just some color schemes or like a storyboard and sticky notes. Evaluate, always evaluate with the user and try to keep it simple. Really try to keep it simple. Thank you, everyone. That was my presentation. And if you want to contact me, I have my email address, my LinkedIn, and my Twitter, X. Just send me a message. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, connect. I'm always happy to help. So if you need some help with templates, storyboards, something, send me a message and I will look at it with you.